Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Today we're diving into what curses were placed on each of Voldemort's Horcruxes. As we learned in the books, the diary can possess someone, the locket can bring your worst thoughts to the surface, and the ring curses the wearer, leading to eventual death. Something we don't learn is if the other Horcruxes also had curses on them. Now consider this. What if his actions before the creation of each Horcrux and some of the object's history formed the curse together? What if the curses became living capsules of the 7 deadly sins? I know this might sound ridiculous to some, but hear me out. There are 7 Horcruxes and 7 deadly sins. These sins are said to be very damaging to the soul. Hermione, referencing Horcruxes, explains how unstable you make the rest of your soul by ripping it. If you do not repent the sins, it could lead to spiritual death and not getting to move beyond. Hermione also explains that the only way to put your soul back together after creating a Horcrux is to have remorse and really feel what you have done. Voldemort doesn't do that, and we see a piece of his flayed and fragmented soul that is unable to move on. Kind of similar ideas, right? Well, if the Horcruxes are cursed with the 7 deadly sins, which Horcrux goes with what sin? What curse would the sin cause? Let's break it down Horcrux by Horcrux. Tom Riddle's diary. The diary is cursed with pride. When I say pride, I don't mean in the way that a parent is proud of their child, but in one's self-worth being beyond reality, like an inflated sense of self-importance. It's probably safe to say that Voldemort was a very prideful wizard. As a child in an orphanage, he learned he had powers that made him different than the other children. He could also talk to snakes. So even when he had nothing, he still felt special. Then, one day, a man comes looking for him and tells him he's a wizard. That just confirmed in his mind that he was better than everyone else. In his youth, while trying to figure out his roots, he finds a Slytherin connection to him in a book about wizarding family lines. Knowing he was linked to a founder boosted his feelings of being someone important. He learned of Slytherin's ideology and wanted to continue it on his own, to succeed where Slytherin didn't. He researched and looked for 5 years while at Hogwarts for the Chamber of Secrets, but when he finally found it, he knew that his mission had truly begun. He released the basilisk within to attack Muggle-borns at Hogwarts. The diary to him would be a symbol that he was the heir of Slytherin, that he was someone great. 50 years later, Ginny Weasley would write in the diary, and 16-year-old Tom Riddle would respond to her. His pride bled through the pages into Ginny to control her. He could siphon off parts of Ginny's life force to make himself visible. This is very unique to this Horcrux. Being visible is a product of pride. It allowed the creator of the Horcrux to be seen and heard. It could even pick up objects. We know that in the Goblet of Fire, for Voldemort to have his body restored, there was a ritual that had to happen. Before that, he was just described as shadow and vapor unless he shared another's body. This part of Voldemort's soul was much more than shadow and vapor. The downfall of the diary would come in the same way pride is defeated, with humility. When I say humility, I'm referring to acting with modesty, selflessness, bravery, and respect towards a higher power. In this case, the higher power comes from Dumbledore. Harry shows a deep respect for Dumbledore, which called in Fawkes to help attack the basilisk. The sword of Gryffindor, a symbol of bravery, appeared to him within the sorting hat. Harry would defeat the basilisk and with one of its teeth, stab and destroy the Horcrux. The Gaunt family ring. The ring is cursed with greed. There can be many forms of greed. You can be greedy over possessions, people, wealth, or many other things. Think of it as an irrational longing or desire for something you don't really need, but you feel like you do. The ring has a long history dating back to the Peveril family. The stone within the ring was the Resurrection Stone. It's not a far leap to say that the creation of the stone was made not by grief, but by greed. Cadmus felt like he needed his love back in his life, without ever thinking what that really meant. Sometime after his death, the stone would be placed within the golden ring band and passed down the family line until it ended up in the hands of Marvolo Gaunt. It seems like greed had also been passed down the line as well, because prior generations to Marvolo had spent all of the family money, leaving him and his 2 children to live in a rundown shack. Marvolo cared more about the ring and Slytherin's locket than his own 2 children. When Bob Ogden came to their shack, he would show them off as if they were a sign of status. Years later, when Voldemort would show up at the Gaunt shack, he would frame his Uncle Morphin for the murder of the Riddle family and steal the family ring right off his finger. After that, he would wear the ring at all times, even at Hogwarts, almost like a trophy, but also status. He had something rare, something special, something others wanted, but he had. His greed for the ring was just like Marvolo's greed. So how does greed curse the ring? We know Dumbledore places the ring on his finger to try to see his mother and sister again. The ring lays a curse on him. Dumbledore's hand is often described as blackened and dead-like. It almost sounds like something that is decaying. The curse stems from generations of greedy people, all the way back to the creation of the stone within the ring. A stone to get something Cadmus felt like he needed. This greed would lead to the death of anyone who tried to use the ring for the same purpose. Greed can be destroyed by charity, not in the sense of giving items or money, but in the way of self-sacrifice or love for others. Dumbledore would use the Sword of Gryffindor on the ring. The sword can present itself to a Gryffindor in need, but it's much more than that. An example is that during the Battle of Hogwarts, several Gryffindors could very much need the help, but it doesn't show up until Neville puts himself on the line in front of everyone he loves and cares about. The same can be said with Harry in the chamber, getting the sword when he puts himself on the line for Ginny in Hogwarts. Ron risked his safety and life to save Harry, allowing him to pull the sword out of the lake. Dumbledore can seemingly come up with plans in milliseconds. We see glimpses of that throughout the whole story. So, in the second he knew he was done for because of the curse, he came up with a plan to save Draco's soul, make sure Snape stayed in good standing with the Death Eaters, allow Harry to continue with his Horcrux hunt, and save everyone from Voldemort. He was willing to give his life, and the sword presented itself, and the ring was destroyed. Slytherin's Locket. The locket is cursed with envy. Envy is resenting or having negative feelings over the good fortune, success, or possessions of others. Like the Gaunt ring, the locket goes back pretty far in history. The locket once belonged to Salazar Slytherin. Slytherin was definitely inflicted with envy. He resented Muggle-born witches and wizards and felt like they did not deserve to be taught magic at Hogwarts. The other founders disagreed with him, which eventually led to his departure from the school. His resentment was so strong that he made the Chamber of Secrets to hopefully one day purge the school of all of the Muggle-born wizards. Again, like the ring, the locket would be passed down the family line and end up in the hands of Marvolo Gaunt. Despite him caring more for the locket than his daughter, he did allow her to wear it. When Bob Ogden came to the shack, Marvolo showed the locket to him by grabbing it while it was still around Merope's neck, dragging and choking her with it. After Marvolo and his son Morphin were sent to Azkaban, Merope would eventually leave the house to enchant her Muggle neighbor, Tom Riddle. They would run away together and get married. Merope would fall pregnant, and Tom, no longer enchanted, leaves before she gives birth. Alone, and about to give birth, Merope would sell off Slytherin's locket. She would pass away after giving birth to Voldemort, leaving him to be raised in an orphanage. Fast forward in time to after Voldemort graduated Hogwarts, he would begin working at Borgin & Burke's. This is where he would meet a witch named Hepzibah Smith, a witch who loved collecting magical items. Voldemort found out that she was now the new owner of the locket. Envious that she had the locket, he would plan her death and get the necklace, along with Helga Hufflepuff's cup. After Voldemort turned the locket into a Horcrux, he hid it in a cave he knew of as a child. He put several protective measures around the locket, but it wasn't the curse, just a potentially deadly trap. We see the curse's evil eye mostly in Ron Weasley. He had unchecked envy in the past regarding Harry and the Triwizard Tournament. I believe this is why it affected him more than anyone else. While upset over being hungry and the quality of food, Ron would yell at Hermione that she was the best at magic, as if she should have cooked better or provided more food. Then, while Hermione and Harry are discussing where the Sword of Gryffindor might be hiding, Ron just boiled over. Envy can easily transform into sadness or anger, and Ron, with a bit of all three feelings mixed together, would leave them. The envy-filled locket would be destroyed with kindness, compassion, and positivity while inspiring others in the same. When Ron finds his way back to Harry, he sees him following a silver doe and jumping into a lake. Harry would be choked by the locket in the lake, kind of similar to Marvolo choking Merope with it in the shack. Ron would catch up to him and dive into the lake after him. He would be able to pull Harry out and also retrieve the Sword of Gryffindor. After the shock of it all, Harry would ask Ron to use the sword on the locket. Ron claimed he couldn't do it because of the way it affected him. Harry would encourage him that he could do it, that he had to be the one to do it. The locket would give one more go at Ron, speaking all the thoughts that weighed heavy on him, but Ron would defeat the thoughts. He made it back to them. He saved Harry's life. He got the sword. He was the chosen one this time. He would stab the locket and destroy the Horcrux. Helga Hufflepuff's cup. The cup is cursed with gluttony. Many people will jump to the thought of gluttony as an excessive desire for food or drink, but it could be much more than that. Gluttony can also refer to other things without restraint. A modern-day Muggle version would be excess screen time. The cup once belonged to Helga Hufflepuff, one of Hogwarts' founders. It was small and gold and featured the house badger on it. It would be guesswork to say if Helga was a gluttonous witch. We know that she was gifted with food charms, and goblets are often used to drink wine out of, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she had an excessive desire for either. Either way, the cup would be passed down her family line until it ended up in the hands of Hepzibah Smith. Now I think it is safe to say that she was a gluttonous witch. She's even described as looking like a melting iced cake. Hepzibah loved collecting trinkets. If it was a unique item, it was even better. You could say she strongly desired to possess magical items, not that she even did anything with them. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that Voldemort was gluttonous over trinkets too. In his youth, he would take things from the other children, and as an adult, he did the same thing. When Voldemort visits Hepzibah on the orders of Borgin and Burkes, he discovered that she had the cup and the locket. 2 days later, she was found dead, and the 2 items were missing. Her death would be used to make the cup into a Horcrux. Voldemort would entrust the cup with Bellatrix Lestrange. She would keep it safe in her family vault within Gringotts. There were many protective charms placed on the items in the vault: Flagrante that burns and Gemino that multiplies. The Gemino curse also makes me think of gluttony. It causes an excessive amount of duplicated items to appear that could even crush you from the weight of it all. The trio would retrieve the cup and escape the vault with it in Harry's pocket. So how would gluttony curse Hufflepuff's cup? It's never stated in the books, but I have a guess. I believe the curse would be poison. If anyone were to try to drink from the cup, they would get poisoned by any liquids within and die. This is actually how Voldemort killed Hepzibah Smith. He would poison her, then alter her house elf's memory to cover up the fact that he did it. Luckily for the trio, they never tried to drink from it. After escaping Gringotts, the trio was exhausted and needed replenishments. Hermione still had pumpkin juice from Shell Cottage in her bag, so as they rested, they indulged in that. Imagine if they didn't have that. What if they tried to use Aguamenti to fill the cup for a drink? The rest of the story would have gone very differently. The Goblet of Gluttony would be destroyed by temperance or restraint, so it had to be Hermione. Out of the trio, she had the most control over her thoughts, feelings, and actions. She was the most level-headed of the 3. Ron devised the plan to go into the Chamber of Secrets to grab Basilisk's fangs. They would pull out all of its fangs, and Ron gave Hermione the cup to destroy. Ravenclaw's Diadem. The diadem is cursed with lust. Let's view lust as a strong and unreasonable desire for something. A desire that could lead to actions considered forbidden or corrupt. It's kind of similar to greed, but rather than the feeling of needing something, you're wanting something. Ravenclaw's diadem has a sad background. Likely enchanted by herself, Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem is said to enhance the wearer's intelligence. She was already a brilliant witch, so the diadem could allow her to push her wisdom to the next level. Her daughter Helena became jealous of her. While still at Hogwarts, Helena would steal the diadem. She desired to be more clever and more important than her mother. She would run away to the forest in Albania. Rowena kept her daughter's betrayal a secret, but one day, she would fall ill. She wanted to see her daughter one more time before she died. She would send a wizard who once coveted Helena's company to find her. When she refused to return with him, his once desires turned into jealousy and violence. He would stab her in the chest. Overcome with remorse, the wizard turned the knife on himself. At some point, they both returned to Hogwarts as ghosts. The wizard, otherwise known as the Bloody Baron, would adorn himself with chains as an act of penance for what he had done. Many years later, Voldemort learned of the diadem and asked Helena's ghost about it. She thought that he was flattering and understood how she felt. Voldemort would retrieve the diadem from a hollow tree that it was left in. One day he would return to Hogwarts and ask Dumbledore for a job. He desired a home and a place to gain more followers, but he also wanted a safe place to hide his new diadem Horcrux. He would hide it in the Room of Requirement, a place where he thought only he knew existed. During the Horcrux hunt, the trio would search for the diadem in the Room of Hidden Things. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle would follow them in. Crabbe and Goyle wanted to capture Harry and bring them to Voldemort. They wanted the credit and respect from the other Death Eaters and Voldemort. Crabbe, probably having similar feelings arise as the Bloody Baron did all those years ago, cast Fiendfire. He unintentionally destroyed the Horcrux and himself in the process. Since the Diadem had been hidden the whole time, it was a Horcrux. The curse is unknown. However, I believe the Diadem, cursed with lust, would cause the wearer to become frenzied and enraged. I think you would end up dying by your own hand, just like Crabbe and the Bloody Baron did. Lust is something that can be overcome by having the courage not to be tempted by distractions or anything that can make you stray from the path of what is morally correct. While it was Crabbe's own mistake caused by his desires that destroy the Diadem, there are a few things of note. Rowena Ravenclaw wanted to make things right with her daughter and to stop living a lie. The Bloody Baron spends his ghostly life with penance. Helena wanted to fix what happened with her misguided trust in young Tom Riddle. Harry, Ron, and Hermione would risk their safety and lives to save Malfoy and Goyle. All of them wanted to do what they thought was morally right, and these actions helped get the Horcrux to the point of destruction. Nagini. Nagini is cursed with sloth. Being a sloth often implies laziness, but it can also be about neglect or not caring about something you should. The final Horcrux Voldemort created was the snake companion Nagini. Born as a witch, Nagini was inflicted with a blood curse. The Maledictus curse would give the ability to transform into a predestined creature. A witch inflicted with this curse could transform at will, but in time would lose the control of when, how long, and eventually the ability to become human again. She would join the Circus Arcanus as a transformation act. While there's a gap in her history, something we do know is that the more you transform at will, the quicker you'll lose the ability to transform back. Whether it was by choice or by force to join the circus in the first place, she neglected the damage she was causing herself in the long term. After meeting Credence Barebone, who joined the circus after escaping the Magical Congress of the United States of America, they would run away together to find out the truth of his parentage. Later, Credence joined Grindelwald's side, and Nagini stayed behind and sided with Dumbledore. This is where the gap in her history is, because we don't know anything else up until the 1990s. Now stuck as a permanently transformed snake, Voldemort finds her possibly in Albania. Seemingly no longer caring about the good side or herself, she would help keep Voldemort alive until he got his new body. She would follow any of his orders blindly, neglecting the strong woman she once was. Voldemort would also neglect her. He had hidden or placed protective measures on all of his other Horcruxes, but not her, not at first. He would even send her out on missions alone. It wasn't until he knew his Horcrux was in harm's way that he put her in a protective bubble and kept a closer eye on her. Then, when he thought Harry was dead, he would let her loose again, neglecting her safety once more. So, what would Nagini's curse be? Would it cause you to neglect your priorities? Is that why Arthur Weasley falls asleep while on watch in the Hall of Prophecies? Probably not, but just a bit of irony. I think the curse is within her venom. What was once used as something to help support life, i.e. Voldemort drinking to become stronger in his rudimentary form, now takes life. The curse causes the body to neglect the normal bodily function of clotting. Without your blood clotting during an injury, you risk bleeding out and dying. Luckily for Arthur, Harry was able to get word to Dumbledore fast enough to act and save him. He got blood replenishment potions every hour until they found a cure that was not easy to find. His body kept bleeding for days. This is something that could very easily kill a muggle or even a wizard in Snape's case, who couldn't get help in time. To overcome sloth, you need to be steadfast and not allow distractions to discourage you. Arthur's healer keeps working on him until he eventually finds a cure. Unlike the ring, this curse can be stopped. The curse even feels kind of sloth-like. It doesn't care enough to keep fighting. This is also how Nagini would come to her end. Neville, who never wavered, never gave up, and always fought not just for himself, but for the good of everyone, would destroy the sloth. Beaten and burned, he would pull the sword of Gryffindor out of the sorting hat and slice the head off the beast, destroying the Horcrux. Harry Potter. The final Horcrux on this list is Harry Potter, and the final curse is Wrath. Wrath is a powerful anger, rage, or hatred toward another that can often lead to the desire to inflict vengeance on them. It's said that the way to beat wrath is to have patience, find ways to resolve conflicts peacefully, choose to forgive, and show mercy. Rather than Harry being cursed with wrath, I believe Voldemort was. Just like his killing curse rebounded, the deadly sin did as well. It's clear Voldemort already felt wrath that night that he attacked the Potters. He had that feeling, that rage, that desire to make sure he came on top of the prophecy. When Voldemort becomes vapor, he does everything he can to make himself strong enough to find and attack Harry again and again. When there was a ritual to get his body back, he could have used almost any witch or wizard's blood, but it had to be Harry. No one else was allowed to kill Harry. It had to be him. Only him. He could not relinquish this feeling because he was cursed with wrath. This wrath would go on to destroy the part of his soul that was attached to Harry. Because he chose Harry's blood for the ritual, it allowed Harry to come back to life while ending the piece of him within. Harry would be his ultimate downfall. Through it all, Harry showed patience. He may have had some anxieties and fears. He also may have had his own moments of anger brought on by grief, but he showed mercy where others might not have. In the end, Harry would ask Voldemort to show some remorse because he knows what lies ahead. If he doesn't, he will become flayed and fragmented and unable to move on. Voldemort wouldn't back down, and when he cast Avada Kedavra, Harry would use Expelliarmus. Once again, Voldemort's curse rebounded, finally ending it all. The final piece of Voldemort's soul was destroyed. 7 Horcruxes, 7 sins, 7 curses, 7 destructions. While the curses on the cup, the diadem, Nagini, and Harry are all theories, the sins do seem to kind of align. The diary's pride, the ring greed, the locket envy, the cup gluttony, the diadem lust, Nagini sloth, and Harry/Voldemort is wrath. It's clear that Voldemort in his lifetime was inflicted with all of these, but it was interesting to think of the connections with the items themselves too. But what do you think? Do you think they also align, or was it a bit of a stretch? Should they have been switched around? Let me know your thoughts. But thank you for listening and making it all the way to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it and want to support the channel, please consider giving a like and dropping a comment. You can also subscribe for more videos. I'll be back again soon with another video, but until then, keep enjoying the magic.